Are you curious about bodies, pleasure, and possibilities? And what about curious about what others are up to on the planet when it comes to pleasure, sex, and play? Have you considered what pleasure can do for your life, your body, and your bank account? Do you know something magical, delightful, and out-of-this-world orgasmic is not only possible for you, but totally available to you? If you're ready to be the magical, sexual, sexy beast you know you can be, and you just need the tools to get there, you're in the right place. Now, here's the host of The Pleasure Zone, sensual movement artist, relationship and sex alchemist, Milica Jelenic.
Oh, I just remembered I'm on. That was really cute. I'm listening to my commercial going, oh, that's lovely. I can't wait for this show. Oh, it's my show. That's where I'm at today, guys. I'm going to get a little bit more present. I'm going to wiggle my toes, feel my bum, and I'm going to just get super, super present with you. And if you felt like I did when this show started, you're like, whoa, yeah, what just went on? Maybe it's time to wiggle our toes, feel our bums, and just get a little bit more aware of our bodies. And this topic might, for today's topic, if you saw the title, might have you going, whoop, a little out of your body. Because sometimes spanking is something that we think of as corporal punishment, and it's scary and not so fun. So why on earth am I talking about this? Well, you're listening to The Pleasure Zone. And The Pleasure Zone is this amazing place where we talk about everything to do with pleasure in so many different aspects of pleasure. And how do we experience pleasure? Well, we experience it with our bodies. So we talk a lot about bodies on this show, bodies and pleasure and the deliciousness of being alive and having these bodies that experience pleasure and gratitude for these bodies that experience pleasure. So one of the things that I have had a curiosity about my whole life is that I've had a curiosity about anatomy, literally my whole life. And I started that when I was pretty young. I have a grandfather who was a doctor, and he had these great medical books. And I used to look at those for fun. I used to be curious about all of the strange diseases that were in there. I was curious about all of the different body parts and the functions. And so from a pretty small age, although I clearly remember looking at them at around age 12 when I began to get more curious about my body, I cough not intended, it was just there. It was something that where I began to get curious about my body, had me curious about other bodies, had me curious about what happens to bodies in terms of like things like diseases and things. So I really started this journey pretty young about curiosity with bodies. I started my curiosity with my own body really young. My curiosity of pleasure seeking, I distinctly remember having memories of masturbation at the age of 4. And I possibly did it younger. I just don't have a recollection of that. So age, 3.5 or 4, I was interested in self-pleasuring. I don't know if you guys were, and it's not that it's uncommon, but it usually is something that starts a little later. Although there is evidence of children being as young as 5 months old having orgasms, and possibly younger, perhaps in utero there are orgasms occurring. Perhaps the moment of conception is a massive orgasm for those 2 cells where cell division occurs, and that's actually the burst of orgasmic energy. It's hard to say. We haven't really examined that. Nobody's scientifically sat down and watched the moment of conception and whether that triggers the brain the same way orgasmic responses trigger the brain. And there has been a lot of research, although there's always more research to be had. There's been a lot of research on what is it that has our bodies turned on and receive these responses that are like orgasmic responses or are orgasmic responses. And these triggers go to a particular part of the brain. And we can talk about that on another episode. But what's fascinating is most all the parts where you would feel you're having, say, erogenous zones or erotic responses, all of those more than likely are connected to the same part of the brain where your genital arousal occurs. So whether your back of your knee or your bottom, for example, for spanking, could all be connected to that same part of the brain. For me, that's just so cool that our brains are so smart in the way that they have arranged themselves somehow through divine intervention or biological intervention or divine biological intervention. Who knows what's really going on? We really don't right now. Though these amazing brains of ours have these collection of responses all in the same area. So getting spanked may actually be quite arousing just through the physiology of the way that our body has connections that then trigger responses in our brain. Isn't that just the coolest thing ever? I think it's awesome. And I've been taking a course lately that get to write my exam today. So excited, actually. Writing my exam to be officially, I will be officially a sex and intimacy coach as of probably tomorrow morning. So we'll see how long the exam takes. So for those of you who are listening, and if you actually point that out, if you send me a note, if you say, hey, Milica, I was listening to your show about spanking. I am so excited for you. Yay. And if you write me that note and you mention that I said to write me a note, you will receive a 30-minute gift from me about sex and intimacy coaching. Yep, I said it here. So how do you contact me? You can write to me at Milica Jelenic at hotmail.com. You can write to me at info@milicajelenic.com. You can find me on Facebook if you like. When you friend me, remember to send me a note and mention this show, mention this spanking show, mention that congratulations. You don't have to congratulate me, but I love the congratulations. Congratulations on getting your sex and intimacy coaching. I'm totally interested in having a 30-minute free session with you. Thanks for the gift. And that is just so fun for me. And it's just such a celebration for me to be completing this course. I have full confidence that I will be passing the exam, so it should be tomorrow morning, which would be Friday, October the 11th, 2019, for anybody listening in the future. And it's so delightful to me that I get to be official with this service now, that I'd like to celebrate it with the world and offer this up. So remember to contact me, you sneaky little peekies, and have some more pleasure in your life. Invite the pleasure zone right into your own bedroom, because right now I've invited it into my bedroom. And for me, this pleasure zone is this area of our life where we get to explore so many things that can be pleasurable. And today's episode is particularly fun for me, as it's something that I am just really curious about and haven't really ever explored in depth. So I'll be exploring it first here with you guys, and then I'm going to bring it into my own life, into my own lovership, and have so much fun with that. So if you haven't brought spanking into your lovership yet, which I invented that word, and I think I should get like a trademark on it because I love the word lovership. And if you haven't brought it into your lovership, I encourage you to just have a listen and see today if this is something that would arouse you or maybe arouse your partner. And especially I'd like you to look at this if it's something where you think that this is maybe something that you've been really avoiding or really don't want to acknowledge, or for you it's something where you think I could never hurt somebody, or I could never let somebody hit me. I'm asking you to look at this because there's usually some underlying core stuff going on that has you either not trust people, has you have a sense of feeling maybe neglected, rejected, or maybe there was a lot of abuse in your life where you were hit with a lot of anger, and maybe you were hit with a lot of unkindness and possibly abandoned by the person who hit you. So those are all factors that can definitely be addressed, and we can address those in that 30-minute gift that I offered. So that's something that can begin to be addressed, so that it's not that you have to choose spanking, it's so that you have the choice whether you choose it or not. And it's not from a place of choosing it out of fear. It's not from a place of choosing it out of a must or a have to get over this. You will have a sense of peace with your choice where you can choose it or not choose it. And in choosing it, it would be choosing it from a space where you are seeking more pleasure. So that for me is really what I'm interested in offering, is offering you the opportunity to allow yourself to experience more pleasure, even in the things that you thought are maybe a little not going to do it, that's kind of uncomfortable, kind of weird, kind of strange, I'm so vanilla. Maybe you're vanilla with chocolate sauce, and maybe you have a little bit of bun on you that you didn't even realize you had. And surprisingly, the spanking is one of those things that's a little maybe more common or even not even recognized as a little step into some play with dominance and submission. And I know in my experience with my lover husband, he like really likes my bum. And so for me, in order to get him to pretty much do anything, I either got to show him my bum, like I pull mooners all the time to get things done, or I'll bend over and let him spank me, and then he's happy. And he's not a hard spanker. He's very light. He just likes to tap on the bum and makes us both happy, and we're good to go. So sometimes it's just a little playful thing, and sometimes it can just be a little invitation into possibilities for maybe later on. So it's a little bit of a way that you can build the energy in the day, and little spanks here and there, get the energy going, get things aroused so that you have some thoughts about, what you might do when all the kids go to bed, and or if you don't have kids, when you have the free time to really explore and enjoy each other's bodies. So how much fun can you have just giving a little tap here and there? And I know in my life, I have had a massive fascination with bums. Anybody who knows me knows I am a lover of bum cheeks. Love them. I love them as much as I love water. And again, anybody who knows me knows not only do I love water, I'm a massive promoter of water. As much as I promote pleasure, I promote water. And the bum for me has such a great texture, no matter whose bum it is, whether it's little or whether it's massive. Bums are fascinating, and they have fantastic texture. And they have so many ways that can arouse your body without having to necessarily go straight to the genitals. So how do you arouse a body through a bum without penetrating the anus? How do you do that? Is it even possible? And surprisingly, it's totally possible. So we have some precious little juicy spots on our body, not juicy from pooping or diarrhea or something like that. I had to go there because that's where my mind went. No, it's not that kind of juicy spots. It's the juicy, yummy spots that get your body to be delighted and aroused through connection, from whether it's hand-on-hand connection or whether you're working with other things, which we will talk about. So the spank areas are something to be really aware of. And there are definitely areas that you need to avoid spanking. And I'd really like you guys to stick around so that you can become aware of the areas that are the delicious, scrumptious areas to spank that will delight their genitals, even if you're not touching them, and the areas to definitely avoid because they can be harmful. So you are listening to The Pleasure Zone on the Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today from the U.S., call 815-880-TALK. That's 815-880-8255. From Canada, dial 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Or send your questions or comments via email to info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Hello, my sweet, sweet pleasure seekers. Welcome back to the Pleasure Zone, where we're having so much fun today talking about spanking. Well, I kind of enticed you into talking about spanking, let's face it. I didn't just dive in there. And I kind of did that on purpose because I feel like spanking is one of those things that can be introduced slowly and gently, and then it can build up to something a little bit more kink-related even. So how do we start with sweet spanking? Well, first, let's get really clear on the areas that you do not spank, okay? Because I think sometimes people just bring out their tools and their things, and then the spanking gets a little mean, or maybe it's just because people don't know enough about anatomy. Whatever it is, we're going to get really clear. These are the places to avoid. So you avoid any area of the spine, literally from head to toe. Do not spank the spine. The spine is super, super sensitive, and unless you're a jackass, you know, if you're a jackass and you're trying to hurt somebody, then debilitate them, put them in a wheelchair, by all means, be a jackass and spank their spine. Get arrested for it and go to jail. That's your choice. If you're trying to do this out of kindness for pleasure, even as a dom, and some people don't get that doms are actually there to gift pleasure to their subs, and that's really what's going on. So even from that perspective, you want to spank in a way that's kind. So avoid the spine, avoid the hips as well. Pretty much it's like those bony areas of your body where the bone is pretty exposed, but also where the kidneys are. So the kidneys are not like super deep into your body, and they can get sore really easily. Spanking that area can be shocking, not only because your kidneys are there, but also your adrenal glands kind of sit inside your kidneys. And that's that area that sends those signals, you know, from our amygdala to our thyroid to our our adrenals, that sets us into a fight or flight mode, which puts us into a bit of trauma. And this is not about traumatizing, it's about arousing. So avoiding the areas that would put your body into trauma. And so what did I mention? The spine, the hips, the kidneys, and the head in general. Do not spank the head. Not with your hand, not with a tool. Things in those areas should be really light and gentle, like a feather touch, and pretty much nothing more than a feather touch. Even that, sometimes for some people, is way too much. Sometimes for some people, even the spine, the hips, and the kidney area and the head, just energetic touches are good to go. For me, my whole head is an energetic area. It's like touching it even. I'm super highly sensitive on my head, super highly sensitive on my spine. And for me, those areas are like energetic or like whispers of like a feather touch. Anything more than that, I just want to fight. So that's me, and I know me. So what about you? I don't really know a lot of people who like to be spanked in the head. There are some people who are into some heavier kinks that do like a punch in the face, and they're into that. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about spanking. So what are the juicy areas to spank? Now, there's a part of the body that's like between the upper thigh and the lower part of your buttocks. And whether you have a tiny bum or you have a giant bum, you have this area. And the area is upper thigh to lower bum. If you've got legs and a bum, and even if you're somebody who's an amputee and you still have a lower part of your bum, you'll still have sensation there. Likely there'll be some kind of touch sensation. If you can receive a touch sensation in that area, you can also receive pleasure sensation from that. So I don't even know where that thought came in about amputees, but if I've got amputees listening, you too can have fun with this. So I want to include everybody in this play. And so what do you do? How do you spank somebody without, for one, how do you spank somebody without hurting them, which we talked about the areas? And then how do you spank without hurting you? Oh, okay. I want to mention too, another fun area to spank. So some of the thigh area, so not the exact hip where the bone is, but down the thigh a little bit further, at the top, between that bum and thigh area, that in-between area, and then just a little lower. And you can go up the bum where it's still soft, but not past where you'll notice when you hold the bum, there's where the bone ends, right? I don't want to get into anatomy words. Just find the bone in the bum, basically the sacrum. If you find that, you're not going to spank anywhere above that, like up towards the head. You're not going to spank anything there. It's all below where the sacrum bones are, all in that super mush area, super squeezy mush area. Even if you have a tiny bum, it'll be the chubbiest part of your butt. And you can also spank, now this is delicious, you can spank the breasts. Yes, you can. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And I personally find that like super sexy and delightful. So if you've never tried it, you might super seriously enjoy it. Yes, I have to say yes. There's a question really in the chat room. And so that's what I want to talk about, is that spanking isn't hard necessarily. And that's where we have confusion and an illusion around what spanking is. We think spanking has to be that corporal punishment we got as kids, or maybe not all of us, but I know I got corporal punishment. I got spankings with a hand, and I got spankings with a whip from my dad when I was little. And my mom could spank me with her eyes. She could just look at me and I could feel the spank. So I did enjoy being naughty. I know that. And I still think I enjoy being naughty. Perhaps I'm looking for some spanking, just perhaps. So, for example, when you have the thoughts of, I really don't want to be spanked, look at that, because maybe there's been some punishment to your body, or maybe those are areas of your body that have had abuses. So before diving into things like spanking those areas, you really want to look at and explore the options beyond abuse. So whether you're going to a therapist or you're seeking one or you're seeking on how to move forward in your life, definitely seek those out. I'm also available. There's lots of people on our network who also have the capacity to work with healing and to work with any kind of therapeutic work, whether it's verbal, coaching, all of that. So I don't know if we have anybody else who's specifically a sex and intimacy coach, but we do have somebody, ADT Finola, who does work with couples. So she does work with in a different way with couples and sexuality. So what we have to really look at is, where are we not willing to explore pleasure? And then if it's like oh my God, I definitely don't want my boobies to be spanked, it's like, okay, cool. Now, it's not about having to say yes. It's just looking at, like, what is it that's putting you off so big and so bad? And then you can come from a place of choice. Like, oh, it's just a preference. My boobies are super sensitive, and I prefer not to have them spanked. So my boobies are super sensitive, and my nipples are definitely connected to that part of my brain that my clitoris is connected to, and I can definitely have breastgasms, which are orgasms through the breast, basically nipple-gasms, full on through the nipple having orgasms. And yes, it's possible. And I will be diving into wild and crazy other orgasms that are possible in November. I'm gathering my crews to have different discussions on different orgasms in the next for November of 2019. So for now, we're kind of starting that conversation with spanking, because spanking can actually, in time, if you're willing to let it, it can induce orgasms. Yes, spanking of the bum or the breast can induce full-fledged orgasms. So again, let's start small and little. We're going to start with hand to body. Getting comfortable with touch and somebody's touch is helpful. What I want you to do before you engage in any of this is just see if you trust yourself with your partner. So just check, like, do I trust myself with my partner? Do I trust that I know this person? Do I trust that I know me with this person? And do I trust that this person will have my back no matter what? When you start to dive into some of these more so-called riskier behaviors, it's really good to really trust your partner. Quite frankly, I think this is a trust level that's required for all intimacy and sexual encounters, but so many of us don't choose that. We just dive in because our genitals are on fire and want to go on a rampage and explore everything. And if you can, take the minute and take the time to just be present and check with your body to see if you trust your partner enough for this spanking to go on, then I know you can have so much fun. So we're going to start with the buttocks, because pretty much everybody has buttocks. Again, even if you're an amputee, your chances of having buttocks are pretty good. So we're going to start with that. And that sweet spot area that's just below where the crease of your bum is, right? So not your crease like your crack, but where there's a crease between your upper thigh and your bum cheeks, and that super sweet spot. I want to encourage you to just start by touching that area. So connect your hand to that bum area. So you can just put your hand on it, and you can rub it, gently, or a little bit with a little bit of pressure, almost like a massage. Like you to just get familiar with that area. And it's almost like your hand will then become magnetized to that area because it's been rubbing it so much. And I'm such a professional bum rubber that my hand can find different areas of bums. But even on my daughter, my hand, since she was little, will find the sweet spot of her bum. And she would ask me when she was really little to rub her bum before bed. Up till she was about 3 or 4, she would go, rub my bum. And then I would rub her bum and she could fall asleep. And she always wanted it rubbed on the sweet spot. Rub the sweet spot, and then she was happy. And what does that sweet spot do? It actually brings these pleasure triggers to our brain that has our body become sort of relaxed and aroused in a way. And, when you're rubbing a bum, it's not so much abuse, right? If the person's asking for it. So just for those of you who are listening who think I'm a child abuser, you need to get a reality check. So, because I've had people report this shit about me. No, that's actually not it at all. And if you have those issues going on and you need to divulge that or work your own shit out, you can either contact me or somebody else, because if I'm triggering you, there might be something going on in your own life that you haven't dealt with. So having that sweet spot rubbed, and I just want you guys to tap into that area, that upper thigh, lower buttocks area. I want you to tap into that and just sense the feeling of having that area rubbed ever so lovingly with just the right amount of pressure for you, having a hand connected to your bum. And I want you to really enjoy that and sense that. And we're going to head off to our next commercial break. And you just keep enjoying that while we're in our commercial. You're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network. When we come back, we're going to get a little deeper into some spanking after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Interested in masturbating for money, copulating for consciousness, and pleasuring on purpose? 21 Days of Sexual Magicism with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic is an exploration of tools, processes, and actions that you can use to create more for your life, your body, your money inflows, and so much more. Graduated learning for all levels of interest. Learn at your own pace via video classes or join the yearly live class. Take a peek at www.milicajelenic.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today from the U.S., call 815-880-TALK. That's 815-880-8255. From Canada, dial 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Or send your questions or comments via email to info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Hello, 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 sweet pleasure seekers. Welcome to the Pleasure Zone, where we're talking about spanking today, arousing bodies through spanking. How fun is this? So, if you have felt like maybe your bum is feeling tingling or a little happy, and you just joined in on this call, you might be tapping into the invitation I put out just before the commercial. And I put out the invitation for you to receive some yummy touch on that sweet spot between your upper thigh and the lower part of your bum cheek. So just really sense that touch. Now, I want you to get familiar with that sensation of touch and pleasingness and pleasure, because this can get even more fun. And maybe this is exactly where you want to stay at. Maybe you just like the being held there or being rubbed there, and that's totally cool. For anyone who wants to go a little bit further, I encourage you to have some conversations about safe words, because you don't want to be spanking somebody until they're in excruciating pain. You want to go to the pleasure area where they're just on the edge of where it's maybe a little too intense, maybe intense to the point where that's too much for them. Or so how do you know? And you can get some safe words. And some of the most common safe words to use are related to traffic lights. So in North America, we have 3 colors of traffic lights. I don't know if that's true everywhere in the world, but in North America, we have red for stop, yellow for proceed with caution, and green is go. So when you're going into some of these more interesting kinks and taking them to other levels, more intense levels, you would be smart to actually have some of these words in place and some of this information in place prior to going any further than just like the holding and touching. For some people, even the holding and touching is like maybe a yellow zone. It depends on if they've been abused or if there's stuff going on or if they have pain, if there's been an injury. So you can use safe words even in vanilla relationships where, you know, maybe you've had a lot of pain or discomfort. So just know that safe words are not just dedicated to the kink community. And safe words can also be, as we found out with our conversation with Christine McIver last week, safe words can also be used in conversations when a conversation's maybe going to directions you're not interested in. You can bring your safe words in. So, for example, if you are just connecting with that bum and it feels really good and you're saying, how does that feel for you? And they're telling you green, good. They're like, green, good, keep going. And then maybe you've gone extreme and you haven't really thought about progression. You go from that to a giant paddle and you bring it out and they're like, whoa, no. You need to slow down, buckaroo, and you need to get the person who's receiving the spank to guide you. So even if you get them to guide you by bringing some things in that they would like to be spanked with, and you don't have to go out and you don't have to get a whole bunch of super expensive toys, but if you'd like some super cool toys and they aren't that expensive, you can get some pretty nice whips or paddles and even some chain kind of whips. You can get those off of Pure Romance site, and you can find the links to the Pure Romance that I'm connected with. You can find links to their products on my page on the Inspired Choices Network so that you can get some products from there. You can also find those links on my website as well for the U.S. and for Canada. I think I will have some links for Australia coming soon as well. So if you're looking for some kinky toys and you're just a little bit shy about going into the stores to buy them, buying them online is fantastic, and you can buy them through me. You can even ask for consultations with me regarding those toys so that you know where to start and what works for you. One of, I think, the simplest, most fun ways to introduce this is to get yourself something called a Tickle Whip. So on one side you've got feathers, and on the other side you might have like silicone strips or maybe even leather strips. So from Pure Romance, there's ones with feathers on one end and then silicone strips on the other. They kind of look like black licorice that are like licorice ropes. And that one's really lovely. And it just gives a little sting. It's not a harsh hit, unless of course you're aiming to harshly hit and you hit incorrectly and you end up hitting with a stick or something, which has been known to happen. So practicing in advance is helpful for sure so that you're not harming your partner. And kind of measuring the distance as well. So if, say, for example, if you have an implement that has, for example, like a tail to it, like I was mentioning, like the silicone strips, or whether it's leather or whatever, if you kind of measure the distance of that, say it's a foot long, this whip of yours, if you're coming up and you're approaching the body and where you're hitting from is maybe where the whip will hit the body about just the tips, about 1 inch of the tips, or in Canada, 2.25 centimeters of the tip of that implement is touching the body, then you won't be inflicting massive amounts of pain. You'll just be stimulating it. So using these implements in a way that is kind, right? So like I said, you might want to look at what you want to move from. You might want to move from a hand into some toys, or you might want to move from hand to more hand. So you might want to go from the touching, that's just energizing that area, really connecting. And even in energy work, this touching that area will start to arouse like your lower chakras as well. So it starts to invite more energy into that area. And you can arouse a body energetically. You can get orgasmic responses from a body purely through touch and energy work without even engaging the genitals. I know it's possible. And so there's a challenge I'm setting for you guys if you want to try something unique. However, that's a whole other story. So for today, spanking, creating arousal. So let's get those hands out. And how do you spank in a way that doesn't harm you and it doesn't harm your partner? So we know the areas to spank, and now let's get the kind of the feel. So for those of you listening, if your hands are free, if you're not driving, or if you've got one hand free, just take out your dominant hand. So for me, that's my right hand, and kind of just put it out in front of you, and you let the weight of your hand just kind of drop as if you're holding something, maybe like a baseball, and just let it feel like you're holding a weight. If you don't know what a baseball feels like, go for like an orange or a piece of fruit. And so there's a little weight to it. And then from there, you're just going to lift. You're not going to lift your arm out to the side and around and like try and go for like a big hit. You're just going to lift gently. When you're first learning, you're just going to lift your hand kind of to the side with a bend. Maybe I'll do a video on this at some point. And then you're just going to let the weight of your arm drop. Just let the weight of your arm drop into that sweet spot. So your hand is it's not really cupped, but it's not totally flat either. It's sort of soft, supple, and gentle. And it's just the weight of dropping your hand that begins the spank. So their body will feel an impact, and it won't be a stinging impact. It'll just be like it kind of goes deeper into the body. And for you, it will be, as the spanker, it will not create any discomfort in your shoulders. You know, if you're spanking somebody for like 20 minutes or something or more, your arm could get tired. But if you're just using the weight of your hand and gravity to be your friend, you could spank pretty beautifully for quite a while. And then moving on to the implements. So the little tickle whips, and then moving into things that are like a little more interesting. So what kind of implements would you want to use? Let's think about all the things that you probably already have around your house. If you happen to have a belt in your house, you already have a sexy implement for spanking. Yeah, you can just get out one of those. I would get you to get a softer belt where it doesn't have like a sharp edge to it or any studs, unless you're into that, but that's getting a little further into the kink when you get some studded things going on. So a soft belt, soft leather, sort of like, or fake leather if you're not into leather, and or even a one that might be sort of a cloth or with like there's all these like kind of cloth belts out there now too. So something like that. You know, like when I was doing martial arts, I had a belt to tie my my gi on. So the gi is like the clothes you wear in martial arts. And so that belt, I could have used my martial arts belt for some spanking. And I just thought of that. So I've got some of those, and maybe I will use them. Now I have like a million ideas of how I can use my old belts and tying. Oh my God, I'm so excited for what I've been keeping these belts for something. Apparently, it's for kink. Phenomenal. Who knew? So excited about that. So look around your house. See what you've got that you can play with. That would be a really cool implement for spanking. And maybe you've got some other things. Maybe you've got some rope. Maybe you've got some soft rope that you want to tie, you know, a bundle together and tie it off or something. So if you have a rope, I'm just coming up with some fun DIY sex toys right now. So what I would do, is in my imagination, is I would get like softer kind of rope, kind of like, I don't know what they're really made of, but you know when you go to the store, there's ones that are like yellow hard plastic. I would avoid those. I'd go for the softer ones. They're usually like a white material, and they're just soft to the touch. So I would wind that around from my arm to my elbow about 10 times, and then tie it off at one end, and then so tie it off pretty securely so that your knot doesn't come undone, or you could even use some duct tape to keep it together. And then you've got this thing. You could either cut the ends if you wanted. It's kind of like making a giant pom-pom, if you've ever made a pom-pom as a kid. And I could totally have a new business of DIY sex toys and videos that go with that, because my ideas are freaking bursting right now. So I'm actually now wanting to go to the hardware store today and go get myself some rope and make myself one of these implements. So for my producer / one of my dearest friends, if you want one, I'll totally make you one. And then I got so many ideas for this. And then so you can just put it together with some maybe duct tape at the end to kind of keep the pieces together. And then you've got this nice soft tails with like 20 different bits of ends of like soft rope, and then you can spank that sweet area with it. So again, you can use that same motion, holding the implement at first, just where you're not putting too much pressure. You're not coming from up high above your head. That would be more of an aggressive spanking where you're getting into some more serious stuff. So by all means, if you're already at that level, go for it. This is really for just stepping into this. So get your hand, just put it kind of up where your hand would be just around where your shoulder is, have your toy there, and have it ready to just kind of drop and flop onto the sweet spot, and then drop and flop onto the sweet spot. And then you can practice. You might want to do some flicks with your wrist, but if your wrist is something that is maybe, if you've got pain in there or whatever, you can still be really great at spanking somebody or using tools. You just have to be aware of your body and be aware of your body's comfort level so that you're not harming yourself in trying to give them pleasure. So just start off easy and just like the weight of your arm down and to see what that feels like. You can practice on a pillow in advance just to see how your aim is. And so, yeah, play with some things around your house. You know, you can totally do that before investing in some toys. Although I love when people invest in toys and contribute to my pure romance business. I'm all for that. I'm also all for you finding toys that work for you, that some people are investing thousands of dollars in toys. And if this is something that is in your heart and you're like feeling like this is your lifestyle and this is something you're going to want to do for, forever, then invest in some quality toys. And by all means, start off with some homemade stuff. Get those belts, make some of those your own cat of 20 tails if you want out of some rope, soft rope. I'm so, my body is so excited for the cat of tails that I can't even tell you. Maybe I'll go buy those things today and do my own DIY video on the Pleasure Zone on Facebook. I might do a live. Maybe it'll be tomorrow. I'm so delighted. I have lots to do today, but this is so exciting to me. So I hope this excites you too. And I hope your bodies feel enticed by the idea that this doesn't have to be something that you have to be a super kinky person, in order to get spanked. It's not something that you have to go out and buy the gimp suit for. You don't have to be wearing tight leather to spank. You could be the average person wearing your jeans, spanking somebody. BDSM starts in so many different levels, and in pleasure, without a title of having to term it BDSM or anything, is even more fun, because then you're not limited by what the sort of the different ideas have been put out there in mass media or pornography. Oh, we're coming up to our end, but I want to just take one last commercial break. So you are listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur? Wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Interested in masturbating for money, copulating for consciousness, and pleasuring on purpose? 21 Days of Sexual Magicism with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic is an exploration of tools, processes, and actions that you can use to create more for your life, your body, your money inflows, and so much more. Graduated learning for all levels of interest. Learn at your own pace via video classes or join the yearly live class. Take a peek at www.milicajelenic.com.
This is the Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today from the U.S., call 815-880-TALK. That's 815-880-8255. From Canada, dial 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Or send your questions or comments via email to info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Hello, sweet pleasure seekers. This show went so fast for me. It was so exciting. I'm like, sitting here talking to you guys, and just the whole show's turning me on. It's awesome. I love that. I love when my own shows turn me on. I'll probably go back and listen just to turn myself on. Quite frankly, that's happened before. So for those of you who have been listening and you've been kind of enticed by this idea of maybe getting some spanking into your life, I think it's a super fun way to begin to even break down some of the stuff that you might have been holding on in your relationship, where maybe there's been this undercurrent of, sort of control and power play going on, but there's never really been an admission to it. So not everybody is willing to talk to their partner about this because maybe their partner's just been really abusive over time, and so this wouldn't be fun for them. And on some level, if you have been with an abusive partner for a while and you're still kind of turned on, maybe there's a level that you are intrigued by having some dominance play. And so I encourage you to start small with the touch of those areas, bring in some hand spanking, graduate it up to some other implements, like whether it's your homemade cat of 20 tails or 9 tails or whatever, whether you're going to have one of those or whether you're going to bring in some other things that are more like the leather whips or some chains, or even some things that would have your body, I would say, like more bound and then spanked. So we're starting off with no binding and just spanking, but there are levels where you can become bound and then spanked. So definitely approach this as a graduated learning system and see, sometimes you skip a grade, it depends on how smart you are at things, your professor or your dom might have you skip a grade. So see where you're at and honor that. If you have any questions or if you'd like to have some facilitation or coaching with me, please feel free to contact me. Where? At my website, milicajelenic.com. And next week, we're going to have a very fun conversation. It is already posted up in the Inspired Choices Network, and we're going to be talking about male multiple orgasms. So exciting. Join me then.
Thank you for listening to The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. The Pleasure Zone returns next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.